just out of Hill 55, patrol went out, and it was at dusk, just before dark, and they got down there. It was kind of a clear area there, and then you got into the trees and such. And this patrol, and I forget how many of them there were in it, but I don't know if it's MVI or Vietcong, hopped up out of a spider hole with an AK to fire on him, and it didn't fire. So of course they killed his ass. Well, it turned out the magazine in his AK-47 had rusted so badly it wouldn't feed the ammo. He didn't know that, of course.
Yeah.
That cost him his life.
Yeah.
But that's kind of similar.
Didn't clean his weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what came after Bougainville?
Are we ready?
You'll be back. What came after Bougainville?
About a little more on Bougainville. We had rubberboat landings behind the line. Went in behind the line there in rubberboat landings. We go down and get in the rubberboat, take us to LMC, Landing Craft Mechanized, and push us out and go away. Then we paddle in. Nobody behind us, enemy in front of us. And then we go and do our reconnaissance and do our thing. M Company and L Company had a little problem. They landed right in the middle of a Japanese supply thing, and half of them got wiped out. But we were a little more fortunate. Now, after Bougainville, we went to Emerald, which was a cakewalk. We landed there and blowing up the island, and we landed. We're out these people. Finally got a hold of a minister type thing. We didn't, but the Japs left the night before. We got out of there, so there was no Japanese. So we spent the next day looking for them. The third day, the Marine Corps gets us set up. Fourth day, we were there for 2 weeks. The rest 11 days, we trained. Trained every damn day and night. What? Okay. You got to be better trained than when you go into combat. Training's got to be more tough than combat. So anyhow, there we go. Then we went to Guam. That was another little different thing. I came in on Agate Beach. Up we went through the tules and sliced razor type, terrible. And we got in there and we were assigned to Hill 40. And we finally got to Hill 40 and got that set up. Couldn't get any connection between us and a K company, and then K company, L company, and tied on the water. This side ran into a cliff, so nothing else. And we got word, hold that Hill 40, no matter what, hold that Hill 40. So I was with a platoon, and we laid out, and we got into that sucker and got going. About 11 o'clock at night, things started happening. And that went on until early morning. We had a full battalion of Japanese at us. They were not very quick learners. The next morning, we had 720 dead Japanese. 80 of them running around us right there. And the commanding officer committed suicide. We wiped him out. And from there we went on in Guadalcanal, or in the Guam, but that was a big happening. So we did about 2 days, we hiked all the way to Rota Peninsula. Then we had to take Rota Peninsula. That was a little tough. There was 3 different things. Up through, and suddenly they stopped us. And wait, and wait, and wait. What's going on? You give those monkeys chances. Pretty soon the tanks came. First time we had tanks. The tanks got in front of us, they got in behind them, and ran. The third one ran them out to the end. We got out to the end of that. Anybody that rode a peninsula been there? A couple of 100 feet down to the water, just like that. women carrying children and Jap soldiers jumping over the end. They were just leaping on them. There they were. We came back, we ran in through the old barracks, and there the bell was. Okay, I'll jump ahead again. That's essentially end Guam. We were there for 45 days. From there on, we sniffed and pooped around and see if we could find anybody. Probably 70 years different. I'm in Marine Corps Museum in Quantico.
Right?
And we had a little function at the chapel. Went to the chapel and came out. There's the Guam bell. They'd taken it and they'd sent it there. There was the Guam bell that I looked at when we went through. That was kind of interesting. Okay, from Bougainville, Bougainville, Emerald, Guam, back we go. Now comes Okinawa, Okefenokee. And we landed on New Year's Day, or April Fool's Day, Sunday, 1945. And we almost lost that thing before it got started. We got caught in one of those called typhoon things. A battleship was floating around there with his nose gone, a stub-nosed battleship. And we got bounced. It was horrible, but anyhow, we made it. Almost took us out. In we go. Now, I missed saying one thing. When I landed on Bougainville, it was in a skipper's round bottom thing, and you had to grab the gunnel and throw yourself over. Wasn't enough Higgin boats around. That's not very nice. When we got to Emeru, we had Higgins boats. Boom. That was good. Got to Guam. Some of us in the first wave had alligators whose back went down. That was pretty nice, because once you got out of the water up there, that was a big improvement. Now we get to Okinawa. I call it a floating tank. It's a little guy with chained in a little propeller, a 75 millimeter stubby, 35 millimeter machine gun, and here we were like so. We came in together, and then down went the ramp, and that 75 millimeters looking for any boom. That made you feel pretty good. I don't know whether they were doing any good, but it sure felt good. Out we went, up we go. We got anything that was resistance, wasn't all that tough. We wiped them out. We're up on Yantan Airfield about noon, and that was supposed to be our goal for the day. Then we sat there, and pretty soon there comes a noise, comes a zero, a plane. Hey, it's a zero. Everybody decided they're going to shoot down a zero. And he landed down there and got out and realized what he had done, and he reached in his chest. That was a mistake. He got himself blown away. But I can't understand what a pilot up there couldn't help from seeing what was happening. Why the H he landed on, I don't know, but that's it. So after that, we stayed there for a while and said, let's go. But across the airfield we went, that's not nice. Across a long cement field. We got on the other side and started up a hill. We were going to cut that island in two. Suddenly we were stopped. Seminai Bolivar Buckner, 4-star Army general, said, stop it, pull back. Okay, so I guess we were out in front of them, anyhow, pull back. So we pulled back, and he wanted us to leave us on the edge of the air. We aren't going to stay there. Who's going to come out? We went back across the runway. It was a huge runway, and set up. The next day we took off, crossed up, and ran into a miserable crowd. I gave them all night to get their people in there. Would have been a crowd. But the first time then that we were coordinated enough for on-ground troops to communicate with our corsairs. And the Corsairs came in with their 6-inch rockets. And up the Perry pistol go on a red stop. Up the mountain we went. Over the top, nobody, we were going. And we cut that island in two the second day. It's like that. Well, then they stopped us because we had the island cut in two in the south and north. We were doing fine. After about 3 days, they said, UK company, you're going to go the end of the island, north. It's about a little 100 miles. We did that in 5 days. We walked about 25 miles a day. And then, as K Company came along, they grabbed a squad. Those mountains in Okinawa are like this. You had to go up and snoop around and see if you could find anybody. You came down and got the end of the line. The next guys went up. And pretty soon it's your turn. Up you went. And it came. We did that fight. We got to the end of the island. We're in good shape. And we're there, and then we got 3 days rest, so to speak, and then it came the 6 spies. The only ride I ever got in a truck, my whole 2 years of combat, we crawled in a truck. We're going over to some area like Monteguto or something, because they were having trouble, and they put us in there. And en route, we were going by, and people were saying, President Roosevelt died. Yeah. So we gave him the middle finger salute. Yep. Pretty soon we stopped, and one of the fellows on the radio said, "Hey, the president died." Oh. So I think that was. I used to have that name. April 29, when the president died, and so I remember that was my one ride in the combat. That was the day the president died. We got into that thing, and we took care of it. And then we were going up and down these terraces. And somehow or another, I tore something loose in my lung. Pretty soon I had 103 fever. And you're going to think, so I'm in a hole, a dirt hole. And next time it was 104. And one evening, the corpsman took my temperature. It was over 105. He said, "Well, do something about this guy." And last I remember. Next thing I remembered, I smelled, boy, this smells good. I hear a crazy noise. Opened my eyes, and there stood a flight nurse right in front of me. And I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. And I was on my way to Guam. And from there I spent 8 months in the hospital before I was discharged. And when I got discharged, that's another interesting comment. I finally, after 8 months, they gave me a clean bill of health. And so the Marine Corps unit there, which is a small Marine Corps at the hospital, looked at my records and found out that I could type. I was down there to type the discharge records. And after 2 days of that, I never got in trouble the whole time I was in 3 years. The major in charge came down there, and I leaped up in front of him. Major, so 516, 935. I'm typing out discharge for people. And I have 2.5 times as many points as they do. And here I am doing this. I want to get out of here because I want to start college in January. I don't know what he said. 3 days later, I had my discharge papers. I thought I was going to go to the brig. You don't jump up in front of a field officer like this, but I did. And because I had more than 2.5 times as many points as those people I was discharging. So I was out of there. Then I went immediately to college. I had 3 years, 36 months, plus a year's 48 months. I went directly to school. 4 solid years with double summer sessions. Took my 48 months. graduated with my degree in wildlife management and fisheries, and then went on to a career in the fisheries and on up. Had a very successful career. My highlight of my career was a presidential appointment confirmed by the Senate, United States Commission of Fish and Wildlife, and Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Fish and Wildlife Department. That was quite a go. And that ended when there was a reorganization of government. They set up a new government of OSHA, and 2 or 3 of those. It took all the research out of my people, and the position was abolished. I was out of there. So I went back to Alaska and ended up in the governor's office as Director of International Fisheries and External Affairs. And that's when I retired. The day I was 85 or 65, 55, I retired out of government. I wanted to get in a private enterprise. Government was getting on me. Because as soon as you got somebody there, you had to have an assistant. That assistant had to have another assistant. That didn't work for me. And then I went into my own consulting. And after I retired, June and I did some traveling. I got to do something. Well, I'm going to try consulting. Meacham Associates, Natural Resources Consulting. And suddenly that took off. And there was no time. I was like 24 hours a day for 11 years. June is a perfect secretary, shorthand, and I could travel around when I was doing it and call her up on the phone and dictate to her. And when I got back, it was already, the two of us did it together. Outstanding. And we had a huge contract with the only offshore marine mining in the United States. And when gold prices dropped, they closed down. We have to decide what we're going to do. And we decided at 65 then, winters are getting colder, we're getting older, and we decided to come to swim. We went to swim. We swam there for about 11 years, and June got Alzheimer's. And my son and his daughter-in-law moved to Gig Harbor here. And he was 48 years in Alaska. And he moved to there and said, "You guys better come over here." So we moved over to Gig Harbor because of her illness. And that was a long, tough thing, 11 years. The last 3 years she was in the hospital thing. Tough going. That's a lousy sickness. And from there, it's over, having a great time, and let's go forward, okay?
All right.
All right. Go on.
That's an incredible story. Can I ask 2 questions, Chuck?
Sure.
When you were typing up those discharges,
What?
when you were typing the discharges
Yeah.
to send people home, where were you then?
In Oak Knoll Hospital. I came back to Oak Knoll Hospital.
Okay.
And I was at Oak Knoll, and they had a little Marine Corps
Yeah.
contingent there. And that's where I was. Yeah, I was 8 months in the hospital.
Oak Knoll Hospital in
Oakland, California.
Oakland, in Oakland, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And the second question was, so when you were in Alaska and running Fish and Game in Alaska,
Yes.
right? Then did you also work in D.C.?
Yes. I went. How did I get to Alaska? That's another interesting question if you got a minute. I was working for Cal Fish and Game out of Stanford University, marine research biologist. Junior, up came the test for assistant and associate, and seniors at the top. So they were listed, and I qualified, so I took them. I went to pass the written, went to the interview. The chief of marine resources shot me through. Doctor from the Steinhardt Aquarium, as a member of the look, sent me through. And the personnel guy said, hey, there were 3 on the thing. you can't be an associate because you're not an assistant. I said, well, you can't take the associate and assistant. And the head of Marine Resources spoke up and he said, I have authority to override you. And I said, I better keep my mouth shut before I don't get anything. And I passed the top of the assistant, and I was immediately appointed assistant marine biologist. So down at Stanford, I had a field office. Stanford, and looking at, and here was a little blue thing, Territory of Alaska, district biologist. Put that down. I said to June, hey, we may be going to Alaska. She said, sure. Later she said, I thought I'd just be good to go. Well, lo and behold, I did go as district biologist in Wrangell, Petersburg, in territorial days. And the drive for statehood was through fisheries. And by golly, we got it. There was 12 of us, and we had to set up a department because statehood withheld fisheries and resources for 1 year, or until the Secretary of the Interior said they had the facilities. Well, 1 year later, we had the facilities. That 1 year, we set up the department. They gave me a travel book. I ran around and picked the best people that I knew, and we set that department up. We took over that. Fisheries was decimated. The federal government decimated it. Now, I'm not picking on their people, but they were stuck by statute. You had a 72-hour close required, and if your salmon run came through that time, they just sucked it up or let it go. So anyhow, the whole fishery had just gone from millions down to thousands. We took it over. My first 2 years as regional supervisor then of 4 areas in Alaska: Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, Bristol Bay, and Iowa Cay. I cut those fisheries down, closed them. I became a very good acquaintance with the governor. When you close a person's life goes down, but the intelligent people there realized you can't do this, and we brought that sucker back. And today, and just in Bristol Bay, there was over 50 million sockeyes in Bristol Bay this year. Over 200 million fish in Alaska. We took it, there was hardly anything. But we did a great job. We got it going, and from there, the department just took it. And then, after 12 years, international fisheries got to be a real problem. It was 90% of the offshore fishing in the United States was off of Alaska. And these vessels were coming in within 3 miles. And they were calling the governor and giving him hell, and he didn't know what was going on. And he called the commission, he didn't know what was going on. So the governor, Hickel, sent up a special position in his office, Director of International Fisheries in his office. And I was recommended